Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Zoom. This Zoom is wonderful because when we are challenged with various things, we can resort to technology, and you, the public, our dearly beloved viewers, can actually participate and have continuity. Now, continuity is something that the people of Sri Lanka are always seeking, continuity of good governance. But to have continuity, you must have good governance in the first place, I suppose. Let's find out, shall we? Our guest this evening is a member of the National People's Power, the NPP, and of which, of course, the JVP is a component member. And she is, of course, no stranger to Newsline Live, and that is Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Very good evening to you, Dr. Harini.
Good evening, Faraz.
Can I ask you straight away, is this government, in your considered opinion, schizophrenic?
Yes. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't make a medical assessment on that. But as an observer and as someone who's sitting across the aisle from them, they do seem very schizophrenic.
Are they, okay, one of the big pressing matters at the moment is the imposition or the attempt to impose yet another irregular but regular tax. This is the super gains tax, or the surcharge tax as it's now called. Clearly somebody in government has access to a good a book of synonyms and so on, and the English language, which is sort of excellent news for that. But you know, the Palanista government had something called a a super gains tax, and this government is now, and they promised at that time that it was a one-off tax. Now this government is saying virtually the same thing. It's a different name, you know, it's a surcharge tax. Isn't it patently unfair?
Okay, so here's the thing. A super gain tax was proposed in this government's budget, the 2022 budget. It was proposed by the Minister of Finance, Basil Rajapaksa, for companies, individuals, and partnerships that incur an income of over 2 billion, right? This was what was proposed, and the government planned to raise 100 billion rupees, 100 billion from this super gains tax. And they proposed that as a one-off tax, as you pointed out. Now, various governments have done this in the past as well. The so-called Yahapalana government also did the same thing. And this is, if you talk about the super gain tax, I think the question here is that how do we ensure a more sort of systematic and fair tax system instead of these sort of ad hoc measures to make sure that the wealthier do pay a little more taxes than the poor, right? And we need to reform the tax system. There's no doubt about that. But this is nothing to do with reforming the tax system. This is an ad hoc one-off measure that was proposed by this government in the previous budget.
It smacks of non-planning, no planning. That's why they.
No.
That's how it appears to me.
No, not at all. I would not say this is unplanned at all. And I'll explain why in a minute. I agree. I mean, I can understand where you think that this is unplanned, because most of what this government does seem extremely unplanned and chaotic. But trust me, this is not unplanned. Why I'm saying that is because when the surcharge tax bill was presented to Parliament, and if you look at the definition of a company under the proposed bill, it refers to the Inland Revenue Act of 2017, Act number 25, I believe, of 2017, which defines what a company is. Now, under that definition, the EPF, ETF, gratuity funds, all of these are also covered and are also included as companies. Now, if you look at it in that way, then if EPF, ETF, and all of these different funds that are actually the savings of the working people of this country are defined as companies liable to tax, even without the surcharge, right now, for instance, EPF annually pays a 14% tax, right? So that means people's savings, working people's pension funds and trust funds are already taxed by the government, and this has been happening for a while. Now, what is proposed by the surcharge tax is a one-off 25% tax on top of all of this. So if you just take the EPF alone, only the EPF into consideration, according to the accounts submitted that are publicly available, in 2019, the taxable income of the EPF was something around 250 billion rupees.
250 billion.
Yeah. So now this surcharge tax is going to be charged on the financial year 2021-2022. So you can assume that 2021-2022 it's even higher than 250 billion, right? That the income of EPF will be higher. Even if you take the 250 billion of EPF as 25%, then it amounts to something like 62.5
billion. Will be charged as taxes on top of the 14% that is anyway already being levied from the EPF. Now this is EPF alone. Right. This is not ETF. This is not taking into consideration ETF. So of the 100 billion that the government is hoping to raise from the surcharge tax, 60% alone will come from EPF. If you include ETF, it may be about 80% of the amount that the government is planning to raise actually comes from people's pension and provident and gratuity funds. It is only the remaining 20% that will be raised from companies and individuals with an income of over 2 billion rupees, right? Now, now, when you look at EPF and ETF, no, these are the shareholders are the working people. If you look at, they're individuals. None of those individuals fit into that income bracket. Right.
None of those individuals will fit into that income bracket. Nevertheless, it is their pension and their gratuity and their trust fund which will be taxed. So I do not believe for a moment, the NPP does not believe for a moment that the government was unaware of this. Right?
And therefore you say it is planned.
This is why we are saying it's planned. Because the EPF, ETF funds of the people, this is not the first time governments have tapped into that to obtain money for the government, right? We know that they use the EPF, ETF money to invest in the stock market, often resulting in losses to the EPF and ETF, right? Which means it's a loss for the shareholders of that company, who are the people, the working people, right? We know that the governor, Ajit Nivad Cabral, at one point speculated with Greek bonds using this money, right? So there is a history of this government, of successive governments, using the people's hard-earned money, their savings, their social security, to speculate in order to gain income for their various projects, or to, for all kinds of nefarious activities.
I'm sure that, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt, but actually I'm not, because I want to point out that you didn't forget the bond scam, did you?
Oh yeah, of course, the bond scam also. bond scam also, perpetual treasury, that was completely based on this money. So there you go. So there's a history to this. This is why I'm saying it is not accidental. It's not that someone sort of didn't clearly understand the interpret. This is deliberate. This is planned.
Premeditated.
Premeditated.
Right. It's a good job there's not criminality involved, because, if it was a murder case, then there'd be murder and all sorts of jolly things. But, what I'm trying to say really is that there is a legitimate expectation that businesses, they've relied on the existing legislation of the day, and they have gone ahead and done their number, they've done their business, they've provided employment opportunities, they've probably exported and helped satiate the appetite of the central bank for more and more dollars, and so on and so forth. And then it is surely totally unfair for the government of the day to perhaps use the 2/3 or other majority in parliament and to go ahead and change the goalpost after the taxes, the profits, the accounts have been distributed, the taxes, if any, had to be paid, and the profits distributed. So you can't now go back. Well, you can perhaps legally, but what I'm trying to ask you is, isn't that counterproductive to business in this country?
Yeah, just a slight clarification on that. Actually, this is for the financial year. They're planning to charge this for the financial year 2021, which is not yet being calculated. Okay, so that I just want to clarify. However, what you're saying is correct for us. I don't think it is sensible to have these ad hoc measures coming in all of a sudden. I certainly agree. That there needs to be a complete tax overhaul of this country. Right? We badly need a fairer tax system. However, along with that, we have to ensure that there is a system, there's a governance system in place that will give confidence to people that their tax money will not be wasted, that their tax money is going to be put to use to provide services to people, right? Because if people have to pay taxes, plus they have to engage in corruption to get things done, plus they have to pay for their health, they have to pay for their education, they get, when they have to even renew a simple license, they get sent from pillar to post, and they don't get the service they expect from the state. You can't justify why taxes are increased. People have to see that the taxes are being used in a way that serves them. So both these reforms have to happen simultaneously. If we are going to reform the tax system, then we must also reform the public sector so that it becomes more efficient, and that the people can see that the tax money is used to service them, to provide services, that they're not paying taxes and then also under the table and over the table and around the table also compelled to pay things to get simple things done, which are the responsibility of the state, right? So both these reforms have to happen simultaneously. If this happens, then I think there will be less people who are less reluctance on the part of people to actually pay and contribute to a fair tax system, because taxes are necessary for a country to raise its income and to provide services.
Has the NPP stroke JVP got a plan on how to collect taxes? An equitable system, a system that doesn't cost more to collect than the amount collected, which is also an anomalous situation in this country. I didn't need the dictionary there. Have you a plan?
We have identified that as something that needs to be done, and we intend to call upon the experts in the area, right? Tax experts, tax consultants, as well as the various stakeholders to come up with that plan. As a political party, we don't have the technical expertise, but we have identified that as an area that requires intervention.
So the NPP has a plan for Sri Lanka's taxation system. We'll find out more about that after this short break, in which we look at the headlines for this evening's primetime news. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, who is, of course, representing the NPP in Parliament. And the NPP, of course, has as a component member the JVP. Now then, Dr. Harini, welcome back. You said the NPP has a plan in terms of the revenue collection and so on. And that's excellent. But, I put it to you that the fish starts stinking from the head. And so the stink here is really not about fish, but about corruption. And the head would be the executive and the legislature.
Yes.
And where do we start there? Is there money? Is there enough money in this country for corruption to thrive and for all the other things to thrive? To put in those 524 toilets in the schools, for example?
No, yeah. Now the point is we don't have the money because of the corruption. Right. If we look at the reason, one of the primary reasons for the economic crisis, I'm not saying it's the only reason, but certainly it's a contributory factor. It's the corruption and the wastage. So stopping the corruption, putting a halt to that corruption, putting a halt to wastage is essential as part of the recovery. That won't solve all our problems, but certainly without that, we can't also expect to change anything. If we expect to go on as normal, and then also come out of this economic mess, that's not going to be possible for us. So there needs to be also commitment to ending the corruption and to putting a stop to the wastage that goes on, right? Mm-hmm. So that is also essential. That has to be part of the plan. I know when we say this, a lot of people turn around to us and say, oh, does the NPP think that just by ending corruption, they can fix the problem? No, we are not stupid. We don't think ending the corruption alone or stopping the wastage will solve the problem. But it's certainly one of the most important conditions. Because
it probably helps an awful lot.
It helps an awful lot. Now, why people are reluctant to say that they're going to end corruption and wastage is because they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to do it because they can't do it, because the people that they are gathering together are part of the corruption and are as responsible for the wastage and corruption as anyone else, right? Mm-hmm. But as the NPP, which has come on a strongly anti-corruption platform, we say that with no uncertainty that putting an end to corruption and wastage is one of the key positions of the NPP proposal.
What chances are there of this latest proposal being stopped in its tracks? Because yesterday we were pointing out that the combination of poor governance, the executive and the legislature, this combination is actually a combination of hell, and the people have only the judiciary to place their hope. It's the last bastion of their hope, really. Isn't that sad that the people are forced into that situation?
No, it is. It's a terrible situation. Judiciary is one bastion, but the voice of the people, the opinion of the people is also important.
But increasingly, it's being ignored. Increasingly, the voice of the people is being ignored. It's falling on deaf ears from the people who are trying to run the country.
No, I don't think so for us. I think the fact that, we were able to stop certain things, and we are confident that this we can also stop if the people are willing to make their voices heard. because we think that is actually one of the most important ways in which this government can be held to account, right? At the end of the day, their primary intention is to remain in power, right? And if they push this bill through, you can be sure that will be the end of their political career. That will be the end.
Should the various stakeholders, including the chambers of commerce, the National Chamber of Exporters, and all these stakeholders, shouldn't they be voicing their concern?
Absolutely. Every person in this country, and that's a huge percentage of the working population in this country, has contributed. Yeah. That is all the private sector, all semi-government individuals. When I was working in the university system, so the academic community, all of us have contributed to these funds. So every person who has an EPF, ETF account must raise their voice in protest. Now already in typical government style, there's already dissension from within. The Minister of Labour, Nimalsiripala De Silva, has said that he is not in favor of this, right? So once again, we see that there's absolutely no collective thinking or collective responsibility from this government. Every day there, in a way, you're sort of left trying to understand who is actually in charge, who's actually making decisions in this government. It's so chaotic. So already there's dissent from within the government, right? And we think that all working people who have contributed to these funds, right, should come out and resist and make sure that this is stopped in its tracks. Do not forget that in 2011, there was a similar attempt by the same people to reform, to so-called reform, bring in a pension fund, right? And that led to mass-scale protests that left one person dead. Roshen Chanaka was killed in that protest.
We mustn't forget Roshen Chanaka.
Do not forget that. We have already lost lives when they attempted to do this in 2011. But that was one of the factors that was the start of the resistance against the government, which led to their defeat in 2015.
A forgetful memory by design is actually very convenient to some politicians. For example, we haven't forgotten, I'm sure you haven't, and the people haven't forgotten, but there are, the Sri Lankan landscape is littered with cases that are unsolved. Some spring to mind. Lasantha Wickramatunga. There was Ravi Raj. There was the attack on Keith Noya, on Upali. It goes on. And what about the mysterious and as yet unexplained death of Wasim Tajuddin? And as time goes by, people think that this has been forgotten, but the family, the friends of these people have been. It has been a life-changing event for them, and they continue to live with that sorrow and so on. And the government of the day and the authorities are showing a complete lack of sympathy on these matters. And the judiciary can only do so much. So how do we change this culture? Everyone's just forgetting about it. They seem to have forgotten about the super gains tax. And now they're trying to put this kind of tax in. And what happens if these businesses turn around and say, all right, we'll pay you the 25%, but we ain't hiring anymore. We won't hire. That's it. We're just going to stop hiring people. Then what happens?
Well, I very much doubt that happening, because in real terms for us, if what is being planned is implemented, most of the companies, there'll be very few companies that are liable to pay this tax, because it is actually EPF and ETF that that we'll have to
So
pay.
this is
right?
almost a heist of the
Yeah.
EPF ETF fund.
Absolutely, precisely. That is exactly what it is.
The bond scam has also had as one of the main players the EPF and ETF funds.
Yes, right?
And I have no joy in reminding everyone there. It's incredible that this country keeps going on from one scam to another. And the latest one smells more. It actually smells more because it's the garlic scam. You know, and that was just a paper entry. You know, we returned it, we bought it back, we made a lot of money. There was some chap, at least they're behind bars now. Do you remember the incident in the car park of one of Sri Lanka's Colombo hotels? They found so much of money. Some Indian company had to pay a bribe, and they were dealing supposedly with the then presidential secretariat. And you know, the landscape, this is just not even the tip of the iceberg. There's much more.
Yeah, this is precisely why the NPP says that the tackling corruption, it has to be one of the key intentions or key objectives of any new government. There is no way this country can come out of this hole without taking an extremely firm position on that. No company is going to be able to flourish. The private sector cannot flourish. No one can flourish in this with this stink of corruption that we have to live with.
And how, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, does the JVP through the NPP, how do you plan on getting rid of the stigma of the previous actions of the JVP? I don't want to go into details, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, see, Faraz, I think the JVP has answered those questions over and over again, right? And I think that's also where the memory of our population, of our citizens also needs to be once again awakened, right? That was a time of great brutality. And one of the primary instigators, of the primary people responsibility for that brutality was the state, right? That is not absolving the JVP of its own, what it did, its own actions. But we cannot forget that there were multiple actors at that time, all who were all of whom were engaged in unspeakable acts of violence, right? So the JVP has explained its position, has expressed regret, has expressed the fact that it will never resort to that kind of action again. But I ask of you to think about this also. Have any of the other stakeholders been held to account for that? Has the state ever been held to account for what they did during that time, right? We have seen the same people in power again and again. We have seen the same people engage in those kinds of violence again and again. They have never been held to account. The JVP has and should answer for what they did. There's no question about that, but so should all the others. So when the general to explain their actions, let's ask the others also. Let's not forget that we re-elected some of those people over and over again, and that while the JVP did no acts of violence since that period, all those other stakeholders continue to engage in violence. Let's not forget that also.
And what chances are there? This is the last few seconds, really. What chances are there, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, of the NPP securing, say, 35 seats in Parliament the next time round?
Oh, no, we don't want 35 seats. This time we are aiming to form a government for us.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck, because I think
don't be skeptical. Don't be skeptical.
I'm not skeptical. I'm rooting for hope, and I'm rooting that for a situation where the inequity will be addressed, and a will be strong,
Yes,
looked
absolutely.
after by the nobility, and that we will hopefully one day in Sri Lanka, we will practice the principles of noblesse oblige.
Absolutely.
On that note, thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.